live? Yes, we're live. Perfect. Welcome, one and all, to In Tune with Joon. I'm your host, Joon. It's the podcast by Millennials and Zoomers for Millennials and Zoomers. Today, we have a great panel. Two of my close friends. Yeah.
Is
Let's
that your new
introduce
tagline?
what? For Millennials and Zoomers by Millennials and Zoomers.
Yeah.
I've said
Yeah,
that
I've
for a
never heard
bit.
that before.
Yeah, I've said that for a bit now. But yeah, I guess it is the tagline. Cameron, our fellow millennial slash Zoomer, how you doing?
Doing great. Surviving
Yay.
the heat.
Oh yeah, it's hot here, ladies and gents. It's like 105, 110, depending on what part of LA you're from. So not too fun. Well, how's the weather in Chicago, Evan?
It's been pretty nice. It's been like 70s, high 60s, breezy.
All right.
Oh, I saw some interesting people in society today. Maybe I'll tell that story in a bit.
Yeah, so speaking about society, we
Keep it
want...
vague.
Yeah, no, you want to tease them. I
I
like
can
the
say
way
it
you
now.
think.
It's not that big a deal.
All right, why don't you
in
lead us
purple
off?
robes.
Purple robes?
I think they're like Black Israelites. Maybe they were like in front of a church, and they were speaking really loudly, like screaming, like on a public busy street. And they were saying like Jesus, the Black Messiah, was coming back, and then some guy on the street was talking to them about the third world. And this was interesting. They were handing out pamphlets, but only to Black people.
Okay.
Like I passed two of them, and they like would offer them to like Black people next to me, and they saw me, and they were like, So it was very like kind of power to the Black African nation, whatever. And that's an interesting value or political ideology in society that I did not know was right here in my neighborhood.
And you know what? That ties into the topic because we're trying to explore how do you cope with living in a society, whether that's your house, your neighborhood, your city, your town, your country, that doesn't share the same values as you do. These can be political beliefs, these can be personal beliefs, your morals, your ethics. Like, how do you cope with that? I like that Evan brought this up because it's a good reminder that there's not like a homogenous belief in like the United States. Like it's such a big country and there are so many different subcultures within it that you have so many different beliefs all in the same pot. Even though we like to be cynical and say, oh, it's all the same thing, I think it's really interesting that a lot of people call it home. A lot of people can find small communities that they connect with. And yeah, I think that's interesting. So I wanted to lead off this this topic with an anecdote. I watched this show. My trainer actually recommended that I watch a show that covers like how Iranian Americans live in New York, and this was on like CNN or something, and it featured one of the guests that was on the Anthony Bourdain episode about Iran on a show. Well, I don't remember the name of the show now, but you know the one.
No Reservations.
No, not that one. It's his CNN show, but yeah. Anyways, I thought it was interesting that this show covered the Trump supporting Iranians and the non-Trump supporting Iranians living in New York, mainly Jewish Iranians. But I thought that was really interesting. Discord is Discord had a little issue. Can you still hear me? I think Evan can hear me. Can you hear me, Cameron? All right, Cameron, are you back with us? Oh, that's not good. Well, the show must go on, I guess. Evan, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Evan hears me. Just Cameron maybe having a technical difficulty. Or maybe it's on Discord side. Anyway, I'm gonna continue talking. So, as I was saying, within subcultures that have made their homes. So I'm familiar with the Persian culture, right? They have like there's a ton of Persians in New York, there's a ton of Persians in LA. And within New York, you have different like religions of Persians, right? You have Persian Jews, you have Persian Muslims, some non-binary, not non-binary, agnostic, what have you. Um, and sorry, I'm doing some troubleshooting with Cameron right now. Okay, anyway, you have different beliefs, political beliefs, and I think showing that to begin with is really important, because to anyone who's watching, right? To anyone who thinks about Persians, if you even know what a Persian person is, you're going to think, okay, well, it's just X person who believes in X religion, and they have X political belief, because usually you know one Persian person, like on average, if you know any at all. So I'm rambling a little bit, but uh, you can find like subcultures within your own minority uh, that share your same beliefs, and I think that's interesting. Where you have like a bunch of friends who have the same political views as you, and you share a cultural history because you're all Persian, so you have inherently a, a shared set of experiences and values. And on top of that, whereas there are some Persians who are not Trump supporting, you can uh, find that as well. So I would say one way to answer my own question that I raised is to find people who you share one trait with. So like if you share a political belief or like a cultural belief, then you like get close with them and like develop a social circle. And I'd say that's one way of coping with it. What do you think of what I said? It was really rambly, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up like the idea of shared values, and you said shared experiences. And I was thinking, like, while you were speaking about like what forms the communal bond, and part of it could be like you were saying, oh, we share a common identity or belief system. But then you get people like us, and it's just, well, we went to school together, So we had
True.
like a common, a common environment, a common space that we like. Well, that would fall under the shared experiences category. But sometimes I feel like people are kind of thrown together and they like form some kind of community, but it's not really based on any shared experience. Like, I don't know. I'm thinking of like roommates right now because I just got a new roommate. But like, I don't know. Like you know what I mean? Like people in the city. Like you say, oh well, I live in LA, and like, but do you have any common experience with people in LA? But politicians, people in the news, when people in general will speak about our community in neighborhood X or our community of Los Angelinos. But like, do they have any real? Do they share anything actually? But it's almost like the idea of the communal bond is just something that's imagined by people when they encounter one another. And in a sense, it has to be like minimally like, okay, I'm like near some other person, like either living next to them or speaking to them or somehow in contact with them. But there doesn't have to be any like deeper thing than that. Sometimes it just kind of
Yeah.
happens. Like, yeah, like we are the community of like like your gated community in Calabasas. Like, I don't know how well you know your neighbors, but like in a sense, you are this community, or like
Yeah.
we are the community of LA, or like we are the United States of America, whatever that is. But like there are ideological connections, and then there are like shared experiences, like going to school with someone, or like a coworker maybe, or maybe like I don't know, someone you played Smash Bros with, things like
Yeah.
that. Like those relationships exist where you have similar beliefs or similar shared activities. But a lot of our identities, I feel like, are not, or communal bonds are not really based on anything deep at all. They're just like contingent and thrown together. But even so, we take them seriously. I just think that's kind of a funny thing that
Yeah,
you
it's like the other end of the spectrum.
stimulated me to think about.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up, because then I thought, well, what does it mean to be from Los Angeles? And I thought of, well, you know how bad the traffic is. Well, you probably support the Lakers or Clippers if you're into basketball. So there's like some cultural things you might know about. There's more of those ideas of shared experiences, like, oh, you live by this place where movies are shot. Well, I live by this place that movies are shot. Oh, I go to that coffee shop. I know that there's traffic here. I've been to this museum. Like, I guess that a lot of that is superficial, but somehow if you're at a party in a different city, okay, maybe the first time you went to Chicago, if you met someone who was even from California or the West Coast, or let alone LA, I'm sure that was you just automatically like have that stronger connection with them. Like even when I went to school an hour north of where I live, um, actually an hour south. Um, I was always happy to find people who were from like LA and not OC. And why do you think that is? Like, is it just like that's the way it's always been?
Because it's a shittier place to live, POC.
Well, okay, let's
And I
say
wouldn't want to live there.
no, I wouldn't want to live there either. But I don't know. Did you ever experience something like that in New York or Chicago?
You mean like finding people
Yeah,
from
you just find
LA?
someone from LA and you like connect with them over that, or was it the opposite for you? How did that work?
Uh, I mean, I met people. There are a lot of NYU students from Los Angeles,
Uh-huh.
but like I never really bonded over that. Like I
Oh,
would
you
meet
didn't.
people like at superficially at a gathering and be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm from." It was always like from Westwood or like the West Side. I don't know why. It was like, "Oh, I'm from Brentwood." I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm from Los Feliz." And they're like, "Oh, I went to the observatory one time." And I'm like, "Cool." Oh, one time I found people who like weren't from LA, but they had like visited a lot, and they really liked the Alcove, the restaurant in Los
That's really
Feliz.
specific.
And I was like, "Yeah, I love that restaurant." So that was like the most I ever bonded with someone
Uh-huh.
about that. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like I don't feel like I bond with people over LA, but then you know Mayor, what is it, Garcetti says, "Oh, well, we have to stand together as the LA community and like
Hmm.
stop the spread of Corona or whatever, and don't go to the beaches, stay home, da da da." I mean, already that's itself a contradiction, is like socially distancing as a community,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it doesn't have to be that, but like some kind of like crisis or something
Kobe dies.
like sets off this idea of the community, and I feel like that's also very common. Is like bringing it back to LA, like growing up, I didn't feel like I belonged to LA culture, but like you kind of created like in opposition. It's like, okay, what is that? You were mentioning like sports teams. I'm like, oh, well, I don't identify with these sports teams, or like, oh, I don't care about celebrity news. But like
Yeah.
whatever you like oppose yourself to, it's going to be a very kind of shallow, imagined thing. But
Well,
I think but I just wanted to bring out like that idea of like a crisis or a tension or like some kind of opposition is like, oh, this disease could wipe out our community, or oh, these ideas floating around are different from me, and like through that opposition, like you kind of create this imagined like communal bond of some kind.
yeah, I was
um,
gonna touch on like it's like a counterculture
there's
in a
no
way.
community without difference, or without tension, I want to say. Like if there was no tension, you wouldn't have any idea of a communal bond,
I wanna
which is
I
maybe
wanna
a nice
touch
like
on that.
physics analogy.
Yeah, I wanna touch on that in 1 second, but I wanted to quickly bring up I like that idea of like, the contrarian view, like, oh, okay, so what? There's like some sports team and some celebrities here. Who cares? Like, there's a lot of people who have that idea who live in LA, so like that in and of itself becomes something to bond over, I think, as well. Because I've definitely met strangers who I can tell are not like, oh, I love basketball and like I read tabloids and all that, and
I mean,
like
it's a lot of
that's
stereotypes, right?
yeah,
Like
I
if
suppose,
you
yeah,
if I
definitely,
ask you like what is I don't know, Chicago culture, or what is Persian culture, like, or what is German culture, like you think of like, oh, like the German guy in the Lederhosen with the
sure,
sausage or something, or like
at
the serious
Oktoberfest,
scientist working for Mercedes, or like I don't really
sure.
know that many Persian stereotypes. Like I don't know, Kia's mom is very nice and makes good food.
Yeah, I mean, if I imagine going to like, if I'm gonna say this is some Persian value, it's like you go over to your relative's house and there's a million of them and there's way more food than anyone can eat and everyone's way too like polite. Like I've talked to you about Tarof, right? Like the idea that like if you're a guest at someone's house and someone offers you something, you have to refuse like twice before accepting it.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, that's like a whole ritual.
Should I be doing that next time I visit you?
I feel like Persians calibrate. to how how good of an understanding you have of Taro, so you don't have to. But anyway, to go back to your idea of tension in a community that holds it together. So can you elaborate on what you meant by that? By the way, it looks like uh Cameron did have technical difficulties, and it would appear that she's going to have dinner now anyway, so she won't be joining us anytime soon, at least. So anyway, what did you mean
Well,
by
like,
tension holds a community together?
because there has to be, I think, some kind of separation between the community and other. And don't necessarily mean, the other is like another person, other tribe, but just there has to be something that we're not. So it's like, okay, I'm from Los Angeles. We have
Oh,
these features, not those. Even if it's I support the Clippers, I don't support the Lakers, or like I support the Clippers and the Lakers, but I don't support, I don't know, the Celtics or something. But
hmm,
like there's something you're not, and like the sports teams could be a good example, because like you come to that like realization of like, oh well, if everyone in America supported the Lakers, like okay, they're from my city, but would you have like a sense of your city community if there wasn't that like opposition? And then obviously you can get into like us versus them things at like a
that's where I thought you were
larger group
going.
level, and I think people tend to have that like negative connotation of difference or like opposition, but I think it's actually fundamental. Not that you need to like obviously discriminate against people or have a bigoted or like closed-minded community, but you don't have a community until like it's separated off in some way from like it has to be distinguished. Like you say, okay, I have a community. Like, okay, well, what's your community? It's like my family. It's like your family is these people that I have these like bonds with, my siblings, the people who gave birth to me or who raised me, and not you. Like nothing wrong with you, but you're not part of this family. So
Gotcha.
like I have to separate it off from you. And like if I didn't have that sense of like a difference between us and the other, doesn't mean I have to hate the other, but like I have to separate myself from the other, or else there's no us.
No, okay. Now that you've elaborated, yeah, I totally get what you
I'm
meant.
getting in like a very abstract direction.
No, but
You're bringing
I
out the philosophy in me.
I agree with it though, because
I am an
I thought,
internet philosopher.
no, yeah, he watches Rick and Morty, guys. So I was thinking you were heading in the direction of us versus them, and that's where I was definitely going to head to. But no, you brought up more interesting points than that. And one thing that I I think I feel like is an interesting thing to bring up is if we're still talking on the topic of cities. Um, so yeah, there are these things that you are and these things that you are not, and that's what differentiates a community. And I like that definition of it. But there's no like gatekeeping. Like you can become a member of a community too. If you move to New York, you might not feel at home the first day, but eventually you go to enough delis, you learn the subway map, you walk around instead of driving around if you're from LA, and you see I don't know garbage bags on the side of the street. Am I stereotyping too hard? But
No. Yeah, there's no like dumpsters really. It's just
like
all
yeah,
on
you
this.
learn like the best pizza places, like, and all of a sudden you have enough shared experiences to where you're more comfortable. And I think there's something like primal about that. It's like getting comfortable with your surroundings. It's like it I mean, this is definitely a case of I'm bringing it up because I only recently read it, but like I'm a big fan of birds. Like I definitely want to own a pet bird at one point in my life, and I learned they take a long time to get used to get used to their new home, their cage, their toys, and they need to like explore it. They need to see it from different perspectives. Like some like their toys to be outside the cage before they come inside the cage. Some like you to ignore them while you sit next to them. Some want you to actively pay attention to them at first. Um, so I think I want to bring up that it's like kind of primal because I've been reading about that, like that you need to explore your surroundings, you need to get comfortable with them, and you like slowly build a community and slowly build like a friend group. So I like the idea that you're not stuck with whatever community you have. Like you can definitely branch out.
Yeah. And on the other hand, if you feel stuck in your community, you can change it and make it new. I mean, New York is a good example. You have all these different immigrant groups that don't, integrate, whatever that means, but they create a Chinatown. And obviously part of that is discrimination. Like I was just reading about, like these sundown laws. Like there used to be like counties in America where like black people couldn't like stay there after dark. But
Really?
they also had laws in San Francisco that Chinese people couldn't stay in most of the city.
Wow.
That's actually how they founded Chinatown. Because like, okay, this is the part of the city that Chinese people can stay after dark.
I did not
But
know
then out
that's
of
how
that,
that
you
came
get
about.
like this like flourishing like minority culture. I mean, minority in the sense of like not the mainstream city. It doesn't have to be ethnic. It could be
Yeah.
something else. It could be like, oh well, no one in my area plays Smash Brothers, so I'm gonna like connect with like the five guys in this other town, and we're
Yeah.
like, like whatever
That is a good
the
example,
Orange
actually.
County Smash Brothers community, but it's like a sub community of like these disparate people who aren't like, I don't know, going to secondhand furniture shops, whatever the fuck they do in the
So
OC.
that is another good way to answer the question. It's like if you are unhappy with your community or your subculture, like change it. And it doesn't have to be as drastic as move across the country, like Evan was implying. Now we can only speak to metropolitan cities pretty much. Maybe Evan a little more rural since he spends some time in the countryside. But like if you live in a
I have
metropolitan
not
city,
spent time in the countryside.
I mean Montreat.
Are you thinking of Kentucky?
I was thinking of Montreat. Yeah.
Well, Montreat's Appalachia.
Okay.
It's not
My
like
mistake.
farmland. It's like
No, yeah.
hill
In any
folk.
case, I just meant not metropolitan. But
Yeah, yeah.
if you are in a metropolitan area, there's a good chance your city has secrets that you haven't like you haven't figured out, and there are communities that you haven't tapped into. So, um, yeah, if I want to play Smash Bros, like Evan said, good example. Am I going to find some tournament right next to my house? No, I have to drive 30 minutes to get to the local tournament. Are the people I gel with going to live nearby? No, unfortunately, they live hour away, right? So there are definitely ways to um, cope, and I like that we're talking in a very optimistic light, like not that you're doomed, like okay, well it sucks to suck, you're born in the wrong place in the wrong time. Like no, there are probably ways to be comfortable with where you are and who you associate with.
Well, the big elephant in the room that we haven't addressed yet is the internet. I mean, so much
True.
socializing now is like online, and I don't know. I mean, I haven't experienced too much of that myself. Like, I'm more of I think, passive observer of the internet, internet culture. But people do, meet people in a community that's purely virtual more and more nowadays. And yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's just, I
I
think
can I can yeah, definitely
you
point
gotta
to some
address it.
things. I think I can definitely point to some things. So we're gonna go back to the Smash example. That obviously has a huge internet subculture because you can play Smash online. You can chat online. You can share memes about it online. Like you're in your Smash group. You're in the Smash Discord. You're talking with your Smash friends on Messenger. I don't know. There's a group chat. Um, and by the way, remind me to bring up group chat later because I think that there's some interesting things to be said there. But yeah, so you meet people who are strangers to you online, and then you meet them in person. So that's an interesting phenomenon because you share these experiences with someone who you don't even know, um, like where where they live or what they look like, more superficial things, right? But uh it's interesting and like hopeful to me that you can connect with whoever. It can be a young person, an old person. It doesn't matter what their ethnic background is or what their subculture is, but as long as you share that like connection through some internet community, whether it's Smash Bros or some other video game or some other hobby like sports or some other passion or even like profession probably is more common, uh, then you develop like a dialogue, and you can escape from maybe your physical surroundings if you're in a remote area by connecting online. So I like that idea as well.
Well, you use the term escape there, and in one sense, literally you're in the virtual space, but I mean, there is that risk of escapism of being extremely online, or like somehow blurring, be like taking online community more seriously than
Oh
IRL
yeah.
reality, and just like somehow losing touch with reality in some sense. I think is a fairly common trope, and I think has some truth to it. And you just, I, I think I agree with you that the internet definitely is a tool for community building, but it should be a tool, I think, not a substitute. I think whenever possible, people should. I mean, now you can't with COVID, but when they can, they should try to have face-to-face interactions, and or at least like this, like video chat, and have like more build personal connections, not just like anons in a chat room or whatever,
Yeah.
or like anonymous Twitter commenters, or like I don't know, people commenting on the same Twitch stream or something.
Sure.
Like, yeah. I mean, I think just people need to build like genuine interpersonal relationships, and
So yeah,
with that also,
I definitely agree with you. And I can point to like some physiological reasons why. Having the ability to read someone's body language, even over video chat, you might not realize it, but you have like an innate way to do this. So it's a better form of communication than texting, and even one level below, talking over the phone is better than texting because there's tone, intonation, there's like, you can
I'm
take your
reading a lot of
time.
body language off Wikia.
Yeah, and same goes right back at you. But yeah, there's he made me lose my train of thought. Point is, um, you want to like maximize your level of communication and connection, and I think that's what seeing your friends in person, socially distantly now, if you're able to, and
If you
once.
believe Fauci. Just kidding. That's a joke. Not a
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. We
For
we
Twitch.
believe we believe COVID exists, people. Anyway, so and once social distancing lets up, like there are a lot of endorphins released when you go for a handshake, when you give someone a hug. If you're from a European country, the 2 kisses on the cheek, or 3, I don't know, depending on the culture. Like there's all sorts of physiological reasons to do it on top of just building interpersonal skills. So when Evan brought up the examples of anons in a chat room, my mind immediately goes to socially awkward people who, if they do have someone they see in IRL, right? They like they don't know what to do with themselves. They'll look down. They'll hands in the pocket, like not be able to look someone in the eye, like not really connect with them, but be able to connect with a bunch of anons because they just like shit post all day and post memes, and maybe that's their subculture, or they have a whole persona online that they can't share IRL. I don't know, but I think yeah, it is important to ground yourself in reality. Um, Most importantly because like it's healthy for you, and secondarily, yeah, well, we'll just leave it at that. It's healthy for you. So I was trying to be on the optimistic train, but Evan was like, "Hold your horses, partner."
Well, you're talking about the endorphins of social contact, but what about the endorphins of getting those sweet likes?
Oh, those are toxic endorphins, my friend. And I know you're probably setting me up for that, but you don't want to be addicted to
Got to
social
get that
media.
follower count up.
Ah, man, it's a trap. It's what the man wants you to do. Okay, on the real though, um if you're that person who takes breaks from social media every like month and then comes crawling back to it, you probably are addicted to social media. And that comes in many shapes and forms. Try to ground yourself in reality more. It's not easy, but when you're with others, it's easy not to be distracted with, I don't know, Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So um, that covers a lot of like the interpersonal, like social aspects of it. Um, and I feel like we can take a quick break, and then I want to talk about some of the political, economic, like those kinds of ways that you might differ with your society.
Sounds
So we're
good.
gonna go on a break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back from the break, and a guest has been added to our panel. Tyler, what's up, Tyler?
Hello. Hi, Kia. Hi, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Hello, always a pleasure. People who are keen amongst you will realize that Tyler was with us last week, so thanks for coming back on. We didn't bore you too much. Um,
I feel very welcome to be asked to come back.
of course, yeah, you're definitely welcome back. So, speaking of which, I was, talking with you in the break, and you brought up something that I thought was really interesting. So, there's an idea that Evan and I brought up that, oh, well, you can move somewhere and integrate yourself and get used to your surroundings, and then you don't feel like an outsider. But you brought up kind of like a similar thing to that, but in a different way. What was that?
Definitely. I don't want to say negative, but like, yeah. So there's the trope of the people who are just so LA, the people who just become this place. And a lot of the time, it's this weird thing that's not necessarily what I guess every Angelino would perceive as being LA. They kind of come on and they come here and they bring on this persona and they start changing whatever. That's cool for some people, but usually a lot of those people aren't actually from here, so they're not noticing that it's like you're picking the weird parts. It's like you like the gentrified version of LA and not necessarily LA. And which is fine, but that is something that's just very common because it's like you're gonna come here and you're gonna change who you are. You're gonna like get used to the place that you're living in. You might, eat different things and blah blah blah. But at the same time, it's like you've completely changed people, and now you're kind of blaming your surroundings on your decision. Bizarre.
Yeah. So it's like you're ultimately responsible for who you become. Obviously, that's what Tyler's saying. Like, yeah, you can't just blame it. It's like, oh, I moved to LA, and then all of a sudden I hate, or not I hate, but I'm totally into this like tabloid magazine, and I'm all of a sudden obsessed with my image, and I'm now an
I mean, if you hate
influencer.
driving everywhere, then
Yeah.
don't move to LA.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice for LA. Also, I did not do a good job of summarizing what Tyler said, but I think
No, you're good. You're good.
I
It's
think Tyler
very,
said it
it's
best.
very weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this person that I know who moved to LA and they were from the Midwest and they went from being this really sweet, cuddly person to being flaky to being really like I don't know, too good for the job that they were doing, and they didn't survive. And I don't know, maybe that's something that's correlated. Like after coming here and then becoming the persona that they wish to become, they then couldn't survive the city that like the groups that they were in and now have left and they've outgrown LA, and I think that's always fascinating. Or there's the
Outgrown.
I just don't blame LA because you fucked up. Like, don't.
Yeah, it's really abstract for me because I don't know anyone who got like chewed up and spit out. Although actually, I think we might know someone. I'll bring up the name after when we're off the air. But I think I do know someone who's becoming that. Um,
Do I know them?
yeah, we'll talk about it after. But I love that, like, for every like optimistic thing we pointed out, there's kind of like a flip side to it. But I think that just
Yeah.
really shows what that really shows to me. It's like it's what you make of it. So if you are in that position where you feel comfortable, you feel integrated, like stay that way. If you don't, there's like that way to find your home, your community. And whether that's through a common hobby, a common ethnic background, a common political belief, which we're going to get into, I think that there are ways to do that. So
Yeah.
now, I think it's a good time to talk about when your political beliefs differ from your community. So I want to bring up a personal example because I think it's always like everyone's like, okay, well, how far do I go? What can I talk about? It's like, well, I'll set the boundaries. Um, one thing, like growing up, I was like, well, I don't know, I wasn't political until I was a teenager. Like I didn't know anything until I started actually learning about what's this and what's that. And until then, it was like parroting whatever you hear. Now, I want to point out real quick because I won't bring names, but there was a big like pro Obama sentiment in 2008
Yeah.
in our school, and that was when we were like, well, I was 12, I think. Actually, I might have been 11, 12. Let's stick with 12. It's 11 or 12, and what do you really know about politics at that age? But I had heard everyone around me say Obama, so I was like, yeah, Obama, cool. And there was this one kid in class who would say, nah, I'm for McCain, and he was like super ostracized. And yeah.
I know
He
who
was,
that was.
yeah, yeah, you know who that was. Again, we'll bring it up if you don't know. But
Well, there were two, right?
was
I'm
it?
starting to.
Yeah.
There was one in my class and there's one in your class, I think.
Oh, yeah, I think I know the two. Um, what
have a
were you saying,
feeling I know
Tyler?
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I know what you're talking about just based off of like the way you're saying this, like who was ostracized. Like now I have
You're
from
probably
different
right.
schools the same thoughts, like
Mm-hmm.
because I had just left Leela at that point.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
It was
aware of.
it was the
Sorry,
year. Yeah,
continue.
no,
My
you're
bad.
good.
I'm like, who
You're
is she talking about?
you're good. You're good. I know. I'm messing with them too. But I think what's interesting from that example is that this person now absolutely does not believe that way. And they are very progressive. They're like, and there was like an evolution. So in 2016, this person did not support Bernie, but in 2020 they did. So I thought that was also interesting.
Yeah.
I bring up this example to show, like, obviously this is kind of related to age, of course, but you can go from ostracized member of the group to like integrating yourself on like the other end of the spectrum. On the other hand, I see another pathway for him, right? There was a Tyler, I don't know if you heard about this. There was a Trump caravan on like Ventura Boulevard. That's
I heard
really
about it.
close to us. And
Yeah.
we live in a fairly progressive area, well,
Yeah.
LA more or less, right? But
No.
yeah.
Still, like,
Yeah.
if you want to say progressive, I feel like maybe you might be pushing it. I might go liberal.
Liberal.
But
liberal is the word.
I no, my sister works on a food truck on Ventura, and she was terrified.
Wow.
She was like, everyone was like, basically like, oh, you suck, blah blah, like yelling at this caravan,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden they're like, more and more people like kind of like blocking traffic with their giant trucks and their big signs. She's 17. She's like,
Wow.
why are people so racist? And I was like, wow, you feel racism from a flag. That's like,
Wow.
I mean, like, you might not be wrong, but at the same time, like, that's really deep. And you're 17. Like, shoot.
Yeah.
I felt bad for you.
I don't want to sidetrack too hard, but I saw this comment online that was like, I told my 8-year-old son that my father passed away, and the kid says, "Oh, was it coronavirus or the police?" The 8-year-old dude. Yeah, so that's kind of insane. I don't know how real that is because it's an internet comment, but
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So, but if it is real, insane. Anyways, I brought up that Trump caravan example as, okay, let's say this person did not change his political views. You can find a subculture in a liberal city for a conservative movement, right? And maybe that's a metropolitan thing, but I just feel like this probably applies to where most people live. and I don't know if I should be emboldening people to join conservative movements, but hey, progressives, find your progressive movement in your conservative city. What,
Right?
Tyler, what were you saying?
No, the thing is specifically with that is it's like um the reason why Donald Trump and his crew won isn't necessarily conservatism, it was more populism. It's like getting to that personal side, like feeding into like the coal workers or making people feel like people from the south of the border are, you know, stealing your jobs and blah blah blah, and like specifically hitting people. Those ideas are very popular on the coast and stuff. That's why like Bernie did so great in Iowa, because it's the same kind. He's approaching people with the same kind of rhetoric. So I think, if anything, if you go to a metropolitan city, you will be able to find solace, like you say, because it's not two sides of the same coin, but it's pretty similar ideas. It's just the way you want to pursue those ideas are different. And I also think that like the internet helps. Like I got into politics literally from a friend saying, "Oh, I post these videos because I have a bunch of racist friends on Facebook." So I'm like, you know, kind of changing up their algorithm. That was her idea.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, what are these videos? And then all of a sudden, like, I got on to different like podcasts and stuff like that, and slowly found myself changing my political views and becoming way more informed and learning about different people through just my own education. But growing up, I was just like you. I wasn't necessarily like into politics. I knew what my dad said and what my mom said, and you know, we were going with it. And my parents were pretty on the liberal side. Like my dad worked for Fox, but he wasn't, you know, with their views. And my mom, so it's like, it's, you know, you just follow what your parents say, and then eventually you kind of get older. So I see how that could happen to that kid. But also, like when I was in a different school, these other girls, which was interesting, but these two girls, and one is actually quite popular now, her whole thing was McCain. She was pushing for McCain, and they were pushing for Romney 2012.
Romney.
That's 2012? Yeah. And I remember being like, I don't understand. Like, why? And I didn't know why I was against this group, but I was like, but everyone else is over here talking about Obama, and why are you being annoying? Like, you know, we separated the class by votes.
Yeah.
And it was like, who's gonna vote for this person, and who's gonna vote for Obama, who's gonna vote for McCain. And for some reason the whole classroom was on the Obama side except these two girls, and everyone was like,
yeah,
what?
it's so similar.
Like, and we didn't understand. You know, I don't know, I didn't realize that was a thing until then. Okay,
Until
I was 11. Yeah, until it happened. And it was like, well, what do we, you know, in that case, it was like, we can't necessarily just cancel this. That wasn't like a thought. It wasn't like, we're not talking to her because she doesn't agree with our political views. But I remember just being like, well, you're wrong, because my parents said Obama, and I'm 11 and I'm going to believe my parents. And who is this old white man? What are you talking about? And now I'm like, oh shoot. And now those people are completely opposite. They've completely, like, one is like very much a Democrat though, like a neoliberal Democrat, and the other person is just like a non-voter, not into politics at all. But the same kind of thing where it was like, why? That's weird.
Yeah. So that same idea of community, like your
Do you guys have any conservative friends now?
I have a close friend who's libertarian. I have a close friend who is I don't have too many conservative friends. I might have one, and I wouldn't say friend. But yeah, I have a close friend who's libertarian. That's the closest thing to like a very differing opinion for me.
No, I don't.
What about you?
Yeah,
Evan?
me neither.
And that I like
No.
I separated from people, but no, I actually that's what I was saying. I don't necessarily, I guess maybe, but so far the people I consider my friends, yeah, no.
I like the direction you're heading in, Evan, and I want to head there. I feel like I had one quick thing to say that was related to what Tyler was saying. Um, well, I must have forgotten it. Oh,
I was
actually,
just wondering
I
about like
remember.
political.
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to give Evan credit for politicizing me when I was like 15, 16, because
Welcome.
he made me think.
Good job.
Anyway, Evan, what were you gonna say?
So I was just wondering about like political beliefs like affecting communal bonds because like you're saying Tyler doesn't have any conservative friends. I don't have any conservative friends. I don't have friends who necessarily share the same beliefs as me, but like there seems to be that like it's almost a trope to say it, but there does seem to be that divide where like people tend to group with like people who vote the same way or just like vaguely or like on the left or the right, you know, like in a broad sense at least.
I do have one.
And like, can we like befriend like Trump voters or libertarians or whoever?
So, Tyler, tell us about your friend. Is this a close friend?
I don't know what it was, but the way you said that, Evan, just reminded me of a person who I've literally been on the fence with. Do I still talk to this person?
Oh, wow.
Because I'm not going to say where they're from. I don't know why I feel like, okay, this person is not American. They've recently become American, right?
Uh-huh.
This person is also very gay and has been pushing for equal rights and all of these things. Cool. Then becomes a citizen and now is like, yeah, okay, they became a citizen because they moved to the US for college, but then they moved to like the Midwest / South. I don't know if it's considered the South. No, it's the Midwest. Minnesota and Wisconsin. They moved to those two states. And now all of a sudden, when the election first started, it was I'm only vote if I'm going to vote for a Democrat, it's going to be Klobuchar because I know that person. Yes, her mom was like personally in that campaign, I guess.
I guess. Okay.
And she was very much in, Minnesota. So that's her state. So she was like, yeah, that's the only person, blah, blah, blah. And then the next time we talked to her, it was like, yeah, and Bernie's a communist. And we were like, whoa.
I wish.
That would be cool,
know,
but
right?
that's not what he is. Like, I promise you, like, you're going, what are you saying? So then we listened and we realized she's been hanging with her brother, who is, like, very conservative. And she started listening to the coolest cat, Ben Shapiro.
Oh, no.
And now she's, like, completely a part of, like, Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, all in that.
Ooh.
And it was like, I don't understand. How did you fall down this hole? And she said, if there's no Republican, she's like, I will never vote for a Democrat unless it's Klobuchar. So I guess I'll just vote for Trump. And we were just like, dude, you're gay and an immigrant. Like, hello? This is not the dude for you.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
I just didn't understand how, like, she had flipped so much. I mean, literally, it was because of the surroundings she was in. Everyone around her was conservative. She went from living in D.C. to then moving to the Midwest around all these conservative people who were borderline Republicans, who were like Lincoln Project Republican, Democrat thing, whatever, that are like, oh, I'm liberal, but not, and all the different things. And, you know, I understand that the George Floyd thing was messed up. I just have to protest. And it was like, oh, God. Okay.
Please.
This is who you've become. And that's my first introduction, too, because it's like, this is someone who's a really cool friend of mine. And then all of a sudden, this, like, I blocked it out of my brain, essentially, because I was like, This is not making me happy. I don't agree with you at all. And I know that if I talk to you, I'll hurt your feelings with facts. Can't do that. So I have to just, like, disassociate. And then quarantine happened, so it was great because we didn't have to really address any of that. And Klobuchar dropped out, and we all very much made fun of her for that. But, like, you know, it's all fun.
Yeah, you went in a interesting direction because I thought
fun fact about Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, go for it, Evan.
I just discovered recently, Ben Shapiro claims he's 5'9", but there are all these pictures of him like next to Ted Cruz, who's 5'8", and he's like at least 2 inches shorter. So people think he's actually like 5'5" or 5. You can look this up. There's so many pictures of him with like people like who you know how tall they are. But like Ben Shapiro has been on record like as a strapping 5'9" man, but he's like
my God.
a
Look, if
lot
you call
shorter. And
yourself a
it's just
5'9"
a
man
funny thing to lie
proudly,
about.
you're not 5'9".
Yeah.
Because if you are 5'9", you're gonna tell someone you're like 5'11". All right, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yo, that's why he sits behind the desk. He doesn't want anyone to like do the measurements of his legs. Like, wait, this doesn't add up.
Oh, okay. So on the topic of OC sucking, on the way back from OC, there's a billboard that's like huge. And it's a picture of Ben Shapiro advertising his AM radio station. And the tagline is "Drive conservatively." And I have to give
Wait,
him
isn't Ben
credit.
Shapiro,
Uh-huh.
isn't Ben Shapiro from LA?
Is he?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he
He's
was.
not
There you
from
go.
LA. I don't think he's from LA, but I'm pretty sure he resides in those.
Oh, now he does. Okay. Not surprised.
I'm not. I don't know his. I don't know that well, but I know he's in the California. Same with like Dave Rubin, all them, because they're all that like California conservative, where they're extra cynical.
Oh no. Real quick, Tyler, are you wearing
Yeah.
earphones by chance or headphones? Something like that.
No, should I? Sorry,
Yes,
I'm
please.
sitting right next to an AC.
No, you're good. You're totally good. Anyway,
Okay.
so I was saying I like that Tyler went in that direction because it was what I was expecting, that I kind of broke off ties because of political views, but she also talked about how like maybe on purpose, maybe accidentally, how like your community influences you. And okay, it was her brother that or family that are conservative, and it's like, oh, my mom has this connection with this senator, and now, or I don't even know if Klobuchar is a senator, actually. I shouldn't say that, but this politician,
Yeah, she is.
and
She is.
she's a senator. Okay. Has connection with this senator, and the senator's running, so I'm going to vote for this senator. So it's like, it can show you how superficially and like, kind of like on such a small level of connection you can make such a big decision. And yeah, it's not a matter of looking at the big picture when you're like, oh, but you're gay, but you recently became American. It's like that like sense of community, that sense of like wanting to fit in might supersede that. I think that's interesting. Evan brought up like, okay, well, can you be friends with someone who you share different political views with? Now, one of our close friends recently found out that someone that they met was a Trump supporter, and this became like an issue for them. And they were like, hey, like, do I keep talking to this person? Do I try to convert them? Do I cut things off? Like, what do I do? I thought that was an interesting question. And I think it really just depends how much you care about the person and how open-minded they are. Like, can you still be friends with someone who believes that if they are not going to change your mind? I mean, it's like, it's up to you. Keon shared on the podcast like 2 episodes ago, and maybe last episode as well, that he had a friend who was a Trump supporter, and he said, oh, it's because his family thinks this way. And he said at a certain point, I couldn't justify being friends with them, and I cut things off. So for Keon, it was at a certain point. And for me personally, it's hard to see me being close friends with a Trump supporter, because there's generally, and I am generalizing, like, I feel like, again, I don't like generalizing, I don't like stereotyping, but you have an idea of a Trump supporter's beliefs, and clearly either they don't recognize that Trump is racist, or racism is not a deal breaker for supporting Trump. 2 of those things vastly differ with my worldview. So how can how can you just not talk about politics? It's like, that's just how they think. So,
Yeah.
That's going to reflect on all of the ways that they think. So how do you maintain a relationship with someone who thinks that differently from you? I think that's what it boils down to. Not necessarily because he supports this political party. It's like, it's just a totally different way of thinking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also found that the people, like, I've come in contact with Trump supporters. That's why I say friends, no. Maybe Facebook friends, but like, I've come across people that like literally they justify Trump by saying that's the media's rhetoric. That's not true. He never said that. And it's like, wait, so you're like ignoring things. Like you've decided, oh, that would be a deal breaker for me, so I'm just gonna pretend like it doesn't exist. Like, I'm just gonna not. listen to it, because it's like, how are you gonna pick and choose the policies that he does? Where I know a lot of people in 2016 were like, I'm voting for Pence. And it's like, that's better. Like, that's not gonna, convince
What does
me
that even
of
mean?
anything. He was a horrible
I want to live in
politician
the
in
Handmaid's Tale
Indiana.
universe.
Exactly.
Handmaid's Tale.
Like, what are you saying? That's exactly what it is. That would be his perfect world. Do you understand? Like, he calls his
I
wife
do
mother,
understand.
and he doesn't associate with other
Oh my
women,
God.
and like, he believes in conversion therapy, and he's a horrible person.
Wow.
Oh yeah, but he's better than Trump because Trump is racist. And it's like, okay, all right, now I don't know how I feel about all of this, but like, I also like, I think when when I was asked that question, like, oh, should I proceed and talk to this person? It's like, well, no, because if you can't get past this part, then why even discover and look into the other parts of that person? Because this is the part that's like on the external side. These are beliefs, these are things that are concretely not changing. Not saying that you have to go into every relationship and change their mind, but it's like, if we can't even think the same, like on the same playing field, I don't know how this can work. Like, my boyfriend and I'm way more progressive than him, but he listens to me. He'll like listen to me rant about Nancy Pelosi, and like he finds it entertaining. If anything, he's not conservative by any means, but he's not over here like yelling at both sides like I am. So I think that like there's levels to having different opinions, but I think at like a la base, like if you're only going to be thinking that like, immigrants' rights don't matter, then like we can't speak. Like I can't.
Yeah, it's like,
talk
hi,
to
I'm a
you.
first generation immigrant.
Yeah, like this is. And this one girl, she was saying, this is the same person I was talking about last week, who was just very much like xenophobic, and it was like very hard for me to like fathom, I guess, because I didn't realize that there were other people that were just so gung ho about Trump, or about not necessarily Trump, but some of his policies. Like, well, what has Trump done to harm Black people? And like, to even have the audacity to type that sentence means that you're completely uninformed about everything that he's ever done for Black people, let alone for all people. So it's like, I can't even, like, that was when I realized I don't know if I can even talk to you, because we're not thinking about the same things. Our priorities are completely different. And what you think is a problem, I don't think is a problem, and vice versa. So there's nothing to continue to talk about. And I know that might not be like, the kumbaya, what everyone wants to have, but like, sorry, you can't. Sometimes the idea, oh, let's agree to disagree, doesn't work when it's about human rights. Like, it just doesn't. It's
Especially
not,
when
you're
it's
wrong.
personal. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Evan, you probably have something to say, but I wanted to point out a quick catch-22. On one hand, I said what I said about, there comes a limit. You think differently. What are you going to do? On the other hand, that just leaves more room for radicalization of that individual / not, they're probably not going to change, doesn't it? What's the solution? What now?
I mean,
No
I
new
guess it
friends.
depends how
Just
hard
stick
you
with the
go.
people
Like,
you have.
if your like environment is like people like fuck you, Trump supporter, you're a bigot, like everyone around you is like
Yeah.
attacking you that way, then I could see how that would harden you. But like, on the other hand, maybe they say, hey, read these news articles and maybe change your mind. I mean, I'm inclined to think that a gentle touch would be more likely to sway someone,
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
I don't know. I've never tried to argue with a Trump supporter, I guess. I've
Yeah.
seen them. Like, I've seen arguments. I've documented them in my head, but I haven't done it myself, so I don't know.
I like that
Oh, but I
idea
had a
of
thought
being
about
gentle.
I
Hold on, we're gonna let Evan say his thing. He's been a quiet boy.
No, like, I can't
he-
see you guys. My whole screen is like stopped. Hold on. I'm
Maybe
back.
leave the call and come back. Maybe Evan, you were saying.
well, you were talking about like being open-minded with people who are of opposing political beliefs, and I was thinking, I consider myself a pretty open-minded guy. I'm sure you guys consider yourselves open-minded people. You know, you consider different opposing ideas in your head,
Yeah.
and you weigh them against each other, da da da. But do we also have an obligation, if we're talking about building community, building social bonds, to in our personal lives, IRL, face to face, like what Tyler was talking about, actually like interact with people some of the time who have radically different political beliefs and not always shut them down. And like, I'm not even speaking from personal experience here because I don't really have that. And I'd like to think that I would be open to, having those conversations, not having those conversations. That's such a cliche, but like putting yourselves in a position where you're like, oh, like these people exist. And whether it's, it could be just like a Trump supporter, but it could even be like, I don't know, someone who's really into crystals or something. Like that might be a better LA example. Like just like putting yourself in a position where it's not just like look at that weird guy online to like, oh, this is like a flesh and blood person.
Yeah, like bring them down to earth. Yeah,
I don't know.
Humanize them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
there was a guest that we had on a podcast that I would describe as similar to what you're describing, and I did like I did like that we weren't hostile with that guest, even though it was clearly like 9 people who believed one thing and then one person who believed another. Like I tried to moderate that somehow and not make that person
It's easy
feel
to
ostracized.
dehumanize people online. That's the one thing I kind of was getting at, and it's I think easier to try to see a full person in real life, even if they piss you off. It's like the whole person is pissing you off. It's like they still have their own like inner life and reasons for doing what they do, kind of thing.
Also, in person, they're less likely to say crazy stuff because they don't have all of the the internet.
It depends on the environment. Like, have you seen those Daily Show reports at Trump rallies and stuff? They sound just like Twitter bots at that point. But no, it's contextual, right? If you like, okay, again,
I think that's internet culture.
True.
I think that's internet culture seeping into real life, though. It's like, I'm gonna take my like troll persona and like now I'm like a walking, Trump 2020, Biden, Biden 2020. I'm this, I'm that, and just like in the streets and not like really having even like it's fine to have a lively debate. I don't care if people yell at each other, but like it's become I feel like very like sloganized where people like you were saying like at Trump rallies will just like have a very vague like pro-America chant or like even like a counter protest will have a very vague like this is bad chant, but there's not like a real like what Tyler was talking about. You're actually like arguing with the person and it's like two people like actually pushing against each other. Like that's more real to me.
Yeah.
I feel like the internet is like poisoning our brains, basically.
Also, the internet makes people feel powerful, like sometimes it's like, oh, if I have enough friends that I'm friends with that are on my side and they're going to come into my defense with other things, then, it's like a fight against 5 people instead of one person. And then, is it really a fight? Is it really even a debate anymore? Because now you have other people's like influence. I was discussing with this girl, like she'd said something very crazy to me. And then I was like, I don't know about all of that. And then she's like, okay, bring me facts. And then I started bringing her facts and she kept moving the goalposts instead of like liking my answers. And so then I was like, whoa, I'm literally talking to a troll right now. Like this is a decision I made to get involved in this conversation. And now she's taken over. And now I'm like, I feel like I'm going crazy because she's not being fair, but like, were there any rules? Were we supposed to fight fair, or were we supposed to like actually come to a conclusion where she realizes I'm right? Or does this person not want to listen to me and is just saying what she's saying because that's her opinion and she doesn't want any commentary? And I had to like check myself almost and be like, whoa, why did I feel the need to correct her or the need to like give my opinion? That's constantly, I guess, my thing about the internet is it makes you feel like I have to tell everyone my opinion, or not even tell them, but just like, you're liking things that you agree with and you don't like things you disagree with, so that you feel emboldened and you're like, well, I have to express myself. Like, you know how many times I've seen stuff on Instagram that I've pulled out a comment towards and then I'm about to post it like, whoa, no one asked me. Who am I? Yes, they asked the general internet, but like, do I need to reply to this? Is this an attack on me or an attack on my beliefs? And do I have to defend it really? No, I don't. Step back and like reevaluate. That's what I'm saying. Like getting into those fights, you think, oh, let's get into this conversation, but you're not talking about it. Like this person isn't trying to talk to you. So stop and check your ego. It's like something I've at least had to do.
It's good that you mentioned ego because a lot of it is like, there's like one side, it's like internet troll, but there's like also narcissism. But what I wanted to say was like when I I guess going back to community, one lesson I really liked from one of my relatives is that, like, saying less is more. It's like, speak when you like really have something to say. And I feel like the internet is the exact opposite of that. It's like speak even if you have nothing to say. Like, especially what we're talking about, like trolls and these generic questions, or like influencer culture or whatever. So uh like Evan said, it's cliched to be saying like, oh, we got to have these conversations, but it's like there are times where you're having an unproductive like chat with somebody who you're not sure is a human online, and then there are times where you have a friend, let's say, who all of a sudden revealed this about themselves, and you want to know more, and you want to like push back on some of what they said. And I think there's a big distinction between the two, and I think that has value. And the again, that example of our friend who like was talking to someone new, found out they're a Trump supporter. It's like had a discussion with that person, then stopped talking about the subject, and it's like, oh, but and they said something really interesting. It's like, is it weird that I still kind of like them? And it's like in the fundamental sense, like, no, it's not weird because it's just a human, and like you obviously liked a lot of other things about this person, and yeah, you clearly have differing political beliefs, but it's not crazy that you still like this person. I think admitting that is like something you wouldn't really hear uh, on Twitter or like Instagram.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
Evan,
Definitely not.
you made a smug look when I said that. Yeah, no, you
Oh,
want to
I
say
was just
something.
thinking, that's like, it's all taste. I mean, like, at the end of the day, people's votes, in the grand scheme, they affect things, and you can vote for Trump or not, and things like that. And they do affect society. I'm not denying that, but like people online or just people you see in the streets who have different opinions from you, like most likely that person isn't hurting anyone. They're not going to hurt you, and they can have, like most of it comes down to taste. It's like, so yeah, of course you can like a person who has different taste from you.
Of
Like
course.
Kia has, bad meme taste sometimes, but I'm not gonna stop being his friend for that. Like
Yeah.
I have friends who have bad taste. It's okay. We can talk about other things that they have better taste. Like
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, there's a reason politics gets under people's skin more, but like, yeah, of course you can like people.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say like earlier, I don't have like a conservative friend, but I did have like a friend in grad school who was like very liberal, and like he would like openly be like, "Oh, I love Pete Buttigieg. He's just so great," and like he knew I was like a lefty, and we would like just argue all the time, but like get like very heated arguments, but then like still be friends, and that's just like that was our thing.
That's funny.
That might be like a philosophy student thing, is like we love to argue, but yeah, so it can happen.
That's yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely
That
argued
would probably
plenty with my libertarian friend, and we don't
How
like
do you
each
have a libertarian? I have a question about that though.
Yeah,
Can
go
we
for it.
can we get into that part?
Sure.
Because look, the libertarian thing, it's confusing to me because it's been debunked so many times by so many different people. So how they recruit new people, I just don't understand. And then they're always like young men, like early 20s, mid 20s men. And I'm all like, how does this model like always reach this specific demographic? Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
It's all
Okay,
guys who look like me.
well, well, this particular guy, he was a Pete Buttigieg supporter. So over the years, I get he was super libertarian when I met him, and I'm not gonna take full credit for it, but I feel like I partly helped him become more like a neoliberal. But still, like he's like in theory he'd be a libertarian, but he admits like it wouldn't work in real life. So no, he's not like a gung ho libertarian, so to speak. And he's like there are some like socially regressive libertarians, which makes no sense, and they're definitely mislabeling themselves. But he's a socially progressive libertarian, so that means on a lot of issues we have more common ground. It's just like on more economic issues we have not as much common ground, but that's so abstract,
Yeah.
like that's it no doubt has an impact on a lot of people's lives, which is why I choose the positions that I choose. But it's easier to hate. Sorry, it's easier to not hate someone for abstract beliefs rather than concrete beliefs. Like, supporting a candidate who says something about people from Mexico, and you're from Mexico. Like that. That's kind of like hard to separate. But having different views on economics, it's like, give me a break. Like, well, I'm not gonna break up with him over it.
Yeah. I
That's how
guess
it is for me.
Well, that makes sense. I guess I was just thinking in the sense of like, I don't know. When I hear all of that, the whole libertarian rhetoric of like the free market and whatever. How did you fall into this? Like how did you just like
it's like
slip and
I got
slide?
mine. It's the I got mine mentality taken to like the nth degree. It's just like, in my opinion, I would. This is totally unfounded, but I would just wager that people who ascribe to like gung ho libertarianism are not very empathetic people, and they're just like pretty selfish people. If I had to take a guess.
That makes a little bit
They should
more sense.
move to like Texas.
No.
And there's so much land there.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
And
Just
just like get a big ranch.
And then you just
And then just
ask
like
them.
patrol the border of your ranch with the machine gun. There you go.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you think about these public roads? I know this is against your entire
I know.
existence.
They only take toll roads.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, he did go to school in Orange County, and there's definitely a toll road that takes you there. So it adds up.
Fly like a private helicopter.
Yeah, exactly.
In a
You
helipad.
have to be a millionaire, like a multi-millionaire, to be a libertarian. It doesn't work either way.
Only paid parking.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the people who should be libertarian, right?
If anything, yeah, they would be more
What?
in charge of their own money.
Like
wealthy,
really, really wealthy
business
people. Yeah.
who would want to deregulate everything.
Yeah. Oh, this is totally off topic. I think the term corporate socialism is just, it shouldn't exist. Like, you guys have heard that thrown around, right?
Well, I think the reason why people say corporate socialism, and because it's like Amazon and like big corporations using tax breaks to get.
It's like the antithesis of socialism.
Well, I think that's the point, because it's like, you guys are so scared of this word socialism, but you don't understand that basically what you find so comfortable is socialism. It's the wrong end of socialism, but at the basis of it is a form of socialism. So like, you're not scared of it, you just don't want rights for all people. But
I don't know if I agree.
Like, Kia, you go broke, you get evicted, the government doesn't help you.
I understand. I understand that on that
and then,
level.
If Wall Street goes under and they bail out the banks,
No, I understand
the banks aren't out on the street.
I get it. I just don't like it. I think it's out of place.
It is kind of a like, we have publicly funded roads, therefore we have socialism.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
government intervention isn't the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there's just such a deep hatred for government that I think my friend said, "Oh, well, yeah, it just dates back to the Revolutionary era, and we never got over that sentiment." And I'm like, I wonder how true that is. Like, just such contempt for the government.
Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton.
Everyone's favorite founding father nowadays was a huge federalist, and he believed in state-funded manufacturing. Thomas Jefferson, the slave owner, wanted lots of plantations and farms. He wanted an agrarian economy. Hamilton was like, no, we got to pump a bunch of money into this, and we need a strong central government. And he was a founding father. And that was a hotly debated issue, was, how strong do we want the central government? How much do we want to decentralize and give more liberties to people at the local level? So that's definitely like a libertarian mythology that's been created, that like, this is what America was at its founding.
You know what's funny? The friend who told me this was also sort of libertarian.
But you have to, okay, everything can be updated though. Like, yeah, this is what the founding fathers did. They also believed in all this other stupid stuff. So maybe we should change some things. Like maybe we shouldn't follow the same things that they're doing or that they thought, and like edit a little bit. Because I don't know, I think that the idea of socialism, that word freaks people out. They don't want to trust the government because why should they? There's so many reasons and ways that different politicians have like completely bypassed their priorities and just, enrich themselves. But the theory, I think, is we should have better politicians, and then it would be easier to trust the government.
I agree with you 100%. You know, I think it's a game of cat and mouse as well. It's like a bunch of neoliberals / conservatives like damaging government institutions, then pointing the finger to failing government as a bigger reason to like continue taking away centralized power.
Kia, you should just have a podcast on libertarianism. And, like take a deep dive on like the culture and mindset of like a young libertarian.
What it's like to be a young libertarian man.
You should, every interview start off with, so, why? And then, and then like, go in.
We're gonna have those two guests on. I'll
I
try to
think
get them on.
we all know someone who identifies as a libertarian now.
Really? I have a feeling there are like two people at the Lila.
A certain person of Russian descent.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he is.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, he's a young 20s man. Like, yeah, that makes total sense. I totally see how he would have fallen into that. That's so
funny.
interesting.
I forgot he believes that. Does he still? Who knows? Anyway,
I don't know.
we
The last
might
time
we might be a little off topic. It's fine. Because I mean we're talking about political beliefs, which is close enough. Maybe we have been rambling on too long. Maybe we should conclude. It has been an hour and a half, so maybe we should wrap this up nicely. I think my biggest takeaway from today is that, yeah, we talked a lot about positives and negatives about whether you're able to integrate into a society that I've labeled that hates you, right? But there are groups within that society, your city, your family, that don't hate you. You know, if you think your entire family hates you and they all have different political beliefs than you, I bet there's a distant cousin or someone who you grew up with who is your neighbor who you consider family that you can connect to. If you think your entire city has a certain political belief that you don't ascribe to, there are definitely subcultures of that. Maybe not in the city if you live in a small place, but nearby. And online is a great tool to use, but don't get too sucked into it because you can lose touch with reality. We talked about all these things, and I think it's a lot of positive messages that we put out with some precautions. So as long as you're putting in the effort to find the things that matter to you, whether it's finding people who share your ethnic background, who share your love for basketball, whatever it may be. As long as you have these tools, right? You have the internet, you're able to reach out to friends and family, explore your city, your community. I think it's very much possible to live in a society that quote unquote hates you. And I forgot to bring this up somehow in the bulk of what we were talking about, but I wanted to conclude with this. For my lefty friends, I don't think buying from McDonald's on your road trip because you're starving makes you a hypocrite. Like, it's okay to get yourself like a McChicken if you're starving and on a road trip. Don't like torture yourself if you live here and you're a leftist. So that's my message. What do you guys think?
Who are these lefties arguing you shouldn't buy McDonald's?
I don't know, man. They're like fucking
no ethical consumption under capitalism. God. Go back to Socialism 101.
I know. No, Keon was saying some stuff like that.
I mean, I understand to an extent. You know, you're like, oh, I don't want to support this giant corporation of whatever, but like, it's not that deep sometimes.
Yeah,
like
sometimes
you have to bring yourself back and understand. Like, I think also it's personal. That's the kind of I don't want to say problem, but the thing with the the greater left is no one agrees with anything, and the whole point is that we all disagree with each other, and that's like the fun part, is that we're all kind of like, oh, I like this that you said and this that you said, but I completely don't agree with this one thing, and this is what we're going to focus on, and we're going to have a whole discussion on like that, because that's partly why the Democrats aren't really getting what they're not talking to their constituency, because it's so broad and everyone has a different opinion. So they're like, oh, let me just go talk to my Republican friends that definitely just have one thing in mind. They don't like this one guy. So then like we can focus on this. Like I feel like because so many people have so many different opinions, it becomes like you're walking on eggshells trying not to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah. Well said. Evan, what do you want to send us off with?
Well, you know me. Live, laugh, love. That's my mindset. Keep your third eye open. Bush did 9/11.
All right. Thank you. The last one was ironic. Anyway, we have to say it was ironic. Anyway, Tyler, if you want to send us off with anything, if you want to plug anything, go for it.
No, just follow me on Instagram at Tyler Malone. Thanks for
Boom.
having me.
You got it. And I'll type that in the chat as well. So there's a record of it. Bam. Oh, send. Okay. That'll be it. Thank you for being here, my wonderful panel. And thank you listeners for being in touch. But tonight you've been in tune with Kyujin. Take care.